If you've been around here any time at all, you know that I have just returned from a long planned trip to Italy, going to Rome and Florence and back to the Vatican City. And today I want to share with you just one small glimpse of a highlight that I had on that trip. Now, I would have to say that I had a lot of highlights on this trip, from being able to once again taste the most heavenly burnt cherry cheesecake in the world at a small family-owned bakery in the Jewish Quarter. Unbelievable. To being able to climb the Duomo and see the view of Florence, standing up on Michelangelo Plaza looking out over Florence at sunset, and walking down to see one of the most beautiful depictions of the Last Supper that I've ever seen up close and personal. And I documented all of that in daily videos that I put over on the Life in Motion Diaries channel. And if you have not seen those, I'll put a link in the description below to this very convenient playlist so you can kind of take your pick as to what you might want to watch. But one of the highlights that I have been anticipating forever is the Keymaster tour of the Vatican Museum. Now, I've been through the Vatican Museum a couple of times. I went once with a high school group, and it was like thousands upon thousands of people in there, and we were all just sort of shoulder to shoulder, and you could barely see anything. That was my first exposure to the Vatican Museums. And then I took a tour that starts before they open, and I would recommend that if you want to see the Vatican Museums in its best light, that's probably the one that I would recommend more than any other. You'll go in with a group of about 20 people with a local tour guide, and they will take you around a lot of the museums, and you will see just fantastic things. And you won't be worried about all the crowds. The Keymaster tour is on another level all of its own, because it starts at 6 o'clock in the morning and it ends at 8 o'clock in the morning. And 8 o'clock is when the first before-hour tours actually begin. So we're all the way through the museum, about 20 of us, before anybody else ever steps foot in the door. And to be able to walk into rooms in basic darkness and have them turn on the lights as different people in the group get the privilege of unlocking every door going through. It's just amazing. Now, there were several things that we did not see. And that's why I would say, if you really want to experience the Vatican Museums, take a tour that goes before they open. There is a long corridor you will see in this video of statues of different famous people. We did not go down that corridor, and there's a statue of Caesar in there and some others, and it's well worth your time. We did not see the Belvedere sculpture, which is probably one of the most important sculptures in the entire Vatican Museum. Even though it's just a torso, it is a Greek sculpture that probably influenced Michelangelo in the way that he developed his sculpture of sculpting bodies. We did not see the two peacocks. If you're walking out on the gardens and you pass this big pineapple, you'll see two peacock statues there. Those are replicas. The originals are in the museum, and we did not see those. There's a little area where this used to be a private living chamber for one of the popes there. We did not go there. We did see, however, things like the Hall of Maps and the Hall of Tapestries and the Raphael rooms, and most importantly, the Sistine Chapel. To be able to see the Sistine Chapel with just 20 people in the room. I mean, the first time that I went, we were literally standing like this, shoulder to shoulder. You couldn't see hardly anything unless it was at least 12 or 15 feet above your head. And constantly somebody coming over the intercom telling us to be quiet. Because when you get that many people trying to whisper to one another, it just gets louder and louder and louder. But with 20 people, you can just walk around the room and truly enjoy the Sistine Chapel. And I was not able to take any video in there, but when we get to that part, I'll come back on and talk about it a little more. So without making you wait any longer, let's just go ahead and get started with the tour, and I'll be back in a little bit. All right, we're standing outside the Vatican Museums. It's about 5:30. We're supposed to be here by 5:45. The tour is at 6. There's a few of us that are like a little anxious, so we're here at 5:30. For those of you that may be new to the channel, this is called the Keymaster Tour, and it is only open to a select few. It's a very expensive tour. I think it's about $560. That number seems to resonate in my head. But the Keymaster goes through the Vatican Museums and opens the museum up. And there is a tour guide here to talk with us as well. So we will be, and I think everybody in the group gets an opportunity to open one door or something. I don't know. I've just seen a few snippets about it. But to say I'm excited, that's an understatement. So the tour is really just now getting underway. It's about 6:15. We've just been shown the key ring, and apart from that, the key to the Sistine Chapel is actually in an envelope that is sealed, and that'll be our last stop today.
behind, back, we can find that's a still outstretched arm of a bit outstretched of the priest that they lay. And we'll explain in the Sistine Chapel inside the Sistine Chapel. No, it's Apollo. It looks like.
Oh, we're getting to see a sunrise.
Downstairs, houses and museums. The museum. Gallery of ancient tapestries for animal cards.
Så vill esancito.
Unbelievable optical inclusion, unbelievable anything that in general they don't provide so blurry. Technically is the more been 3,000 years ago they discovered that also another one is very technique consists to paint or to paint using only oil colors. Oil colors may seem particularly funny because according to the sisters, the people of the Sistine Chapel, Moses was the prefiguration of Jesus. The angel gave a look and he will be the Jesus. Not very large room, no? Okay, that statue was the private apartment at the beginning of the 16th century of Leonardo da Vinci. Also, Leonardo da Vinci lived inside the papal buildings that was housed by Pope Louis X. And here we have the three portraits of the three best gifted Italian Renaissance masters. Leonardo da Vinci, one of the masters featured around Leonardo da Vinci. And you have the Papa, the Cristo Leonardo, ma on the extreme right, that young man painted on many step like let's go back to her. Yes, no, yeah, the Lord and man are right that much. Here I try with the face.
Now, I first became aware of the Keymaster Tour by watching a channel on YouTube called Rome Wise. And if I remember, I'll try to put a link to that channel in the description below as well. This is a lady that talks about a lot of the tours of Rome and the history of Rome, and she sort of gave a brief clip of what this tour was about, and it really piqued my interest. And she had said on one of the tours, she'd been in there 2 or 3 times on the Keymaster Tour, and she had said that on one of those times at least, the guide that goes with you, you're with a couple of Keymasters who unlock the doors and a guide who's explaining everything to you. And she said that one of those guides allowed them to actually take pictures in the Sistine Chapel. And so I had my fingers crossed that I was going to get that guide or somebody like that. But alas, it did not happen. And so when we went into the Sistine Chapel, I did see a couple of people sort of get their phones out and take a picture. I did take one picture with my phone. Nobody stopped us. Nobody said anything. Nobody made us delete them. But then we got reminded. And so I put my phone away. If you've never been to the Sistine Chapel, it may surprise you by just how small it is. It is the personal chapel of the Pope. And it's also the chapel where they vote, the cardinals vote for the next Pope. But I'm sure you're aware, Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel, I think the bulk of it over a period of about 4 years, and he painted it himself. And to look at this massive artwork that had to be painted on scaffolding way above the ground and to still have it in perspective is just amazing. Now down one wall there are panels that depict the life of Moses, and down the other wall there are panels that depict the life of Jesus. And then on the ceiling is where we get the most famous paintings that we know, the one of God reaching out his finger and touching the finger of Adam, or almost touching the finger of Adam, to give him life. Those are the things that we know. But what was interesting to me, and I did not know this until my last trip through the Sistine Chapel, when I was on a personal tour with it was just me and a guide. The very first picture that he painted is a lot smaller than the rest. And she pointed out the fact that when Michelangelo got finished with that and looked at it from the ground, he realized you really couldn't see it. And so he just changed all the paintings after that, and everything became much bigger. It's a fascinating story in so many ways. And you think these are frescoes, and if you're not familiar with frescoes, frescoes are painted on wet plaster. They have to plaster just a little bit of the wall, sketch out what they're doing, and paint it before the plaster dries, or it's ruined. Because the idea is the paint soaks into the plaster, and it's there forever. And so when you look at all of the paintings in there that had to be meticulously put in place piece by piece by piece, it's just, I'm just in awe. I really am in awe. And then, of course, there is the grand wall behind the altar that is the judgment scene. And that Michelangelo came back several years later to finish that at the behest of another pope. So I'm sorry that I don't have anything about the Sistine Chapel in this video. I encourage you to go look it up on YouTube, do a deep dive search, and just get lost because there's so much out there on it. But let's go ahead and finish this tour. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.
This is why whenever you come to the Vatican Museums, you want to get a tour that starts before they open. This line goes around that building. That's it. That is the Keymaster tour. There are a couple of rooms we didn't get into, which was fine. But what is wrong with my camera? But overall, I would highly recommend this tour to anybody and enjoy it 100%. So right now, I'm going to head toward St. Peter's Basilica. That's for a totally different video. And maybe along the way, I can find a coffee bar.